Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode. Today's guest has been a DJ, a gardener, a vaccine administrator, a front of house team member, and is currently a radio presenter and producer for Susy Radio, and also volunteers in the, would you call it the home ec sector of the, would you call it that?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'll see you pretty much on there. It doesn't seem like there's nothing I haven't done.
It's Chris Jacobs. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. How are you, Carl?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad. Yeah, you certainly have done like a wide range of jobs.
Yeah, I think since I literally got out of since I got out of school when I did my A levels, and I think I finished when I was 18 years old. University wasn't the thing for me really. So I didn't even like look at one university, like even go to an open day. I just knew I was like, I want to go into work. I kind of know what I want to do. I always wanted to do like radio, like presenting, producing, that type of thing. But I thought I looked into maybe like a few of the courses, and just thought that I can do this without a university degree. Like it's just pot luck and a chance. If you just build your portfolio up and just hammer down the door in terms of pushing people to give you a chance, they do. And so that's where it all started about 5-6 years ago. It literally started all about 5-6 years ago. I came out of my A levels. And then literally 2-3 months later, I was like, right, I really want to get into this. So there was about a station down the road from me called Surrey Hills Radio. It was brand new at that time, literally few months born. So I decided to go along there, had a chat with a guy called Dave, who was the station manager at the time. He's just like, yeah, what we want this station to be is basically local people or anybody that just want to give it a go. That was the basis. And I was like, right, I'm connected into that. So I started off by actually doing a sports show. It was on a Wednesday, 1 till 3 on a Wednesday, called the Sports Mania Show, that would base itself on various different sports and a building, and like knowing the fixtures, the results, and giving a bit of punditry on it. I'd have a guest on every so often for an interview, like either local, like I had once, guy from the local archery company, just explaining that. And because he's actually the chairman of the local archery company in a place called Chesington, he's actually blind. He's a blind archer.
Wow.
Yeah, he can literally see 10% and he can shoot one of these long bows and still hit bullseyes.
So I take it whenever you first started, he was showing you up a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. I was there. I was just like, how is this guy shooting 40-50 yards blind? And I'm literally standing there doing 10 yards and can barely hit the target.
That's quite motivating, to be honest. But like that could be, intimidating a little bit as well, because that might make you feel, a little bit self-conscious. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's incredible, to be honest with you. I always say like people with, I'm very into like, I think disabled people, as I've always had this thing where disabled people are really good. For example, like at my gym, there's this disabled guy that comes in and you wouldn't know he was disabled or that. But like this guy, like he could literally probably outlift just not literally everybody, but most people in the gym, this disabled guy. And it's incredible to watch, to be honest with you. I always say like people with things like that always have like, their strong points, and yeah, it's usually strength or technique. So they're really good at like exactly like studying or anything like that. It seems to be that they're just a lot better at us than doing that type of thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they are. I've seen like all across Instagram and social media, there's loads of that. You see all these motivation groups. There's one I remember, I don't think he doesn't have any legs, I think, and he's literally lifting and bench pressing like good like 3-4 times his body weight. And he's got prosthetics. I just don't know how he does it.
Is that the bald guy?
I think it is. Yeah.
I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah, one of the wheelchair guys. Yeah, they're incredible. But yeah, I think that so you were a DJ, but then you went to gardening. I'm curious, what was the like? That's
I'm still actually DJing, to be fair. I'm still DJ. It's kind of like because the gigs dried up because of COVID. Like what happened is like the presenting and the producing, that's still on a volunteer basis at the moment. The DJing, it's like your Saturday nights, your club nights, your pub nights, that type of thing at the moment. But the gardening, it's actually one of my best mates' mum's companies, who literally just during COVID, I was on furlough at the time and just went, they were saying over the dinner table, because I was literally like my mate Kieran, I went on one of these socially distanced walks, as they talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had to do that. We went on one of them. She's like, oh, what's he doing? It's like, he's furloughed at the moment. I was like, oh, does he want a bit of extra money and come and help me do my gardening company because they need an extra pair of hands? Did that for the first couple of days, went really well. I'm just like, do you want a job, just freelance at the moment? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I do that. And essentially, I'm working 3 jobs at the moment. So I work in hospitality. I do that on the garden on the other days. And then I'm also a decent level cricket coach, not professional level, but most of the kids that come through me that I've coached through over the last, I've been coaching since I was 13 years old. I'm now 24. I was full time doing it.
Mhm.
And I managed to, they're in like the county setup and they're pushing on to higher levels and they're getting towards the adult sides and the county sides.
Wow. So you've what made you want to like, was there a reason you went from, I know obviously you're DJing and presenting and stuff like that, and that's clearly like your end goal. But was there a reason you tried other jobs, or was just exactly like you said, it was more along the lines of just picking up to help you like move you to the certain like along the line, along the train tracks is a good way to do it, to then get to the end? Or was it like you genuinely, you were like, yeah, I kind of want to do this sort of stuff, because you were a vaccine administrator as well.
Yeah, I did that to try, and that was kind of like, because I've worked in done pharmacy work quite a lot,
Mm,
and it was one of the pharmacy bosses that I used to work for.
mm,
He was just like, they needed some people supporting the vaccine admin program when all the vaccines were available to come out in some of the smaller pharmacies. So he asked me, it's like, do you want to do it? You've got first refusal. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Because I'm not afraid of working 2-3 jobs at a time.
mm,
I'm very much one of these people that doesn't think, okay, I'm going to work in one job, I'm going to have a salary, I'm going to stay there. I like to do so many different things and sometimes overwork myself doing too many different things at one time.
mm.
Because as you say, I'm doing this podcast with you right now in between 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Literally, I finished one, came here, done this with you, and then I'm off to another one afterwards. So I'm always doing something and end up crashing about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm just like, I don't know how I'm doing this, but I just get up the next day and do the same again.
Yeah, you're a front of house team member as well. What I could kind of see the correlation between DJing and front of house team member. It's the other jobs. As again, obviously you're helping your mum's friend out, and then obviously the vaccine administrator, which good on you for doing that. But what has the end goal always been to be like, obviously you're volunteering just now, which I've heard from like a lot of people I've spoken to, and the people that are watching this now will know if they've watched my last ones, especially with Alan Davison, who works for Bauer Radio. So he's
Yeah.
senior content something. I can't remember his proper title, but he said the same thing. Like the way he started was volunteering. Like that's how you literally get
You've
in.
got to do that. You've got to
Yeah.
do that. You've got to hammer the volunteering down,
Mm,
door down. Literally, you've got to smash it, smash it, smash it. You get in there and you basically, ideally, you will need with volunteering in terms of you're presenting, you're producing. You may get lucky in terms of early on, but most of the time you need at least 3, maybe 4, 5 years experience behind you just because it's quite substantial.
mm.
People won't just go, oh, I've done this for 6 months. Will you give me a go? Most of the time, unless you are unbelievable and you've hit the jackpot at the right time, you won't get a chance.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people, because a lot of people, I think, as I've said this before in a lot of podcasts and that, I think that putting the salaries out there of what these, top guys earn, and for example, Gary Lineker, millions a year, and then you've got I don't really want to name a lot of them, but because I don't want to get their names wrong. But there is a lot of them in like BBC Radio that get 250,000 a year. There's that guy that gets like 600,000 a year, and I think it's actually wrong putting that out there, because yeah, they get that now when they've been in the industry for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
But they didn't walk into half a
It
million
didn't
pound job.
start like that. No.
No, it gets there due to them being good at their job.
Yeah,
Which is,
100%.
I think media again. I think media really, like anybody that goes into, my opinion is, anybody that goes into media and goes any form of media, where it be on telly, radio, could be any form of broadcasting, or even if it's behind like a newspaper as such. I think it proves that like they don't want to have the normal 9 to 5, the normal nine to
No.
five house, white
Yeah.
picket fence, house, dog, family type
Never
thing.
been like that. I'm always like Mr. Unconventional, like right field. Like if my group of friends from school, everyone's either like, they're like, one of them's a risk analyst, accountants, One's a sports physio, and then there's just me working about 3 jobs trying to get in the media industry, which is me just bashing down doors. Like, I'm just so I've always been unconventional with everything I've done, because
Yeah,
I think what helped when I grew up was when my mum brought me up. Everyone would always play around here in Epsom, where I'm from. So there was Epsom Cricket Club, Cheam, Sutton. Everyone would go Cheam and Sutton because they kind of like, they were a bit better at the time. Mum was always just like, and football as well. There was AFCU and Epsom and Ewell. Everyone played for Epsom and Ewell. Mum went to me, right, you're not going there. You don't have a choice. You're going to other places. So I was the only one that went to these different teams. And that benefited me in terms of actually pushing myself to actually talk to other people, which has helped me become a radio presenter. In terms of when I've gone and done other stuff in my life so far, it's been allowed me to be the one on the front foot and just say, oh, I'll introduce myself. I'm not afraid to introduce myself and talk to somebody. And that's benefited me massively.
Yeah, I mean, for example's sake, I always relate things back to the gym, but to be quite frankly honest, it's because I haven't started my new job yet. I haven't started until tomorrow. So
okay, what is it?
How to describe this job? It's like a mental health mentor. So a lot of it is talking to people with mental health problems and things like that. But for example, it's like what's a good analogy? Well, the analogy they used is there's a bridge near me. It's the Perth Bridge. It's Perth in Scotland, and
I've been there.
a lot of people,
I know that one.
Yeah, a lot of people jump off it to, unfortunately, commit suicide, which is really unfortunate. But if the police manage to catch you, they bring you to us. So like right after it, so we see them literally right after it, and we bring them down. We set up a plan. We figure out what the trigger point is, and we talk them down, calm them down, make sure they're 100% okay, and then they go home later that night. As long as everything, as long as they're not intoxicated with alcohol or drugs, because that's a whole nother. That's a whole nother ball game. You actually need to sober up and stuff like that before you can have a conversation. But it's that type of thing. It's working with people that are like really, really, really struggling. Which, yeah, it's a different type of job, and it's something I never see myself doing. But well, I kind of did a little bit, but yeah.
Oh, fair play. No, I'm even comfortable talking about it because I previously radio helped me with when I had a few mental health problems. I think it was a few years ago. I think I was 17 years old. I think it was out of nowhere. I don't know how it was, but what happened was I was on a night out somehow. I was work Christmas Day. Had a bit too much to drink. Woke up the next day. Thought I'd as you do, walk into school hungover, as you do at that age. Everyone's saying it's a hangover, it's a hangover, it's a hangover. And then I end up being knocked out for about a week and feel like I've had a week-long hangover. What actually happened? They looked into it. Was that when your ears are actually balanced, what happens? I had an ear infection, and because of the late night out and the drinking and everything, somehow it's unbalanced my ears. So one was one level, one was other, which basically led to me having severe vertigo.
Oh, damn.
And that led to me having that when I was 17 years old. I struggled with getting back into school. And it basically, because I had 3 months off school, it grew into anxiety, social anxiety at that time, because I felt like I was trapped in a claustrophobic basis in classes. That's why we had a chat before we started this. This is one of the big reasons why I have to sit on aisle seats on public transport and airplanes. This is why, because I don't like feeling trapped on the inside. And it's one of these big things. I still suffer it, to be fair, every day. But it's like with anxiety and depression, these things, like you don't ever cure yourself from it.
No.
You actually just learn your triggers and how to deal with it. And mine was always the likes of chewing gum was a good one. Grounding is one where you're literally just sitting there and you just, rather than focus on anything, you look at stuff around the room. So say I was looking at the picture right now that I'm looking at say I started feeling sick and everything, picture I'm looking at you there, I'd literally go, so over your left shoulder, light switch, door handle, mic, say glasses, and the recording dot in the left-hand corner. I'd literally point that out, and that'd take my mind off the sickness. And then also drinking water as well. They were the 3 triggers for me to help me.
So is that what, because I'm always fascinated to what keeps people motivated, because I feel like with anybody that watches this probably is in media or wants to be in media like yourself or that. So would you say that's what necessarily keeps you motivated then when you have to volunteer, is the fact that like you kind of do have things that you want to overcome and things like that as well. Would you say that's like a driving factor, or do you use it as a driving factor? Would be a better question.
Massively. Look, because I know what it was like. I know the state, I'd even say the state of affairs I was in. I was in an awful place, but pushing through the media and pushing myself to go into the radio industry. My first show was awful. It was dreadful. I was stuttering all over myself. My sickness was like skyrocketed. And just like, even now, when I think when I did my first interview, like it came back up again, but you get used to it and you learn to work with it. It's just one of those things that it's tough to deal with. But once you get past those first steps, I feel like even like talking to somebody about it, it could be professional or just a friend. Like I'm so like massively supportive of all these mental health organizations that are going around right now. Like there was a event that I was training before I got injured. I was right into my running through lockdown. I still want to do this. It's actually around where my radio station actually is in it's around Gatwick Airport, that area.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I know it.
That area. There's every single little town and village that comes up in the radius of our actual radio station. I said, I'm going to run between each one. And it's basically equivalent to, for mental health, I was going to basically run 5 marathons in 5 days. That was my target.
Yeah.
Just for it. And the thing is, like, I'm very much love listening to these motivational conversations in terms of and videos on YouTube. And one that always pops up to me is a guy called David Goggins.
Yeah.
Heard of him? Always. And for me, in terms of the way I build with my mental capacity, in terms of mental strength, is a lot through him and what he says. And one of them is always the 40% rule. 40% rule basically works. I use this in the gym as well. 40% rule is basically when you feel your mind and your body is tired, you're only 40% done. I live by that.
Thing is, and it's very good that you do live by that, because I'm the exact same, and I try and like, you know, when I do speak to people, and because obviously people do, you know, message me and things like that and be like, you know, really helped, you know, now I know this, but like it was nice hearing that somebody and is in a place that I was in but also has mental health, because I think people are in these you know, amazing positions and they're like 100% okay, but they're not. Like some of them aren't, not all of them, but some of them aren't. I think like I have had people message me and I always say like, yes, use that rule, but also remember that use your mental health and your anxiety as a strength, because a lot of people have anxiety because it's nervousness or it's because they need to get things done. So it's like, try it. Obviously it's not easy. I'm not going to say it is, but I'm always like, try and use that as a strength and use it to push back. But all these negative things that happen to people, because sometimes it is like negative stuff that happen to people that then make them, you know, give them anxiety or give them depression or stuff like that. I'm like, try and think to yourself like, oh, that's all these people are giving me, you know, negative stuff like that. I need to kind of prove them wrong, and always keep that kind of blinder head onto you. But I think like another good question is how do you deal with negativity if you've ever had it? Because you did say before the podcast started, all your mates were in, you know, these, you know, what people call high flying jobs. But like, and did you ever get like a little bit negativity, like why didn't you do that, or why didn't you go into like just go straight into like an industry type thing, and why did you want to take the other like another route and go into the amazing career it is media? Did you ever get any like negative feedback from anybody or anything like that?
In terms of what in terms of the negative feedback, in terms of the way I was going about it, or negative feedback in terms of
why didn't you get like an
actual
the
job,
normal
a proper job?
Proper job, yeah.
Oh,
people call it like the 9 to 5 lifestyle.
I got bashed by it, absolutely bashed by it. My mates love them to bits, but they'd be literally like, "Oh yeah, why are you not going to university? Why is this not your type of thing?" Because although it wasn't too long ago, it was still like a negative stigma. Massive negative stigma. You didn't go to university, you're not going to have a life. Because I think the perfect example is when I was working in a pharmacy. I think it was about 2017. It wasn't actually my mates, which was the worst criticism. A gentleman came in, started having a conversation with me just about what I was doing, and it's like, "Oh, you here, you trainee pharmacist?" I was like, "No, I'm just doing this for a job at the moment, just a bit of money in, and then I'm going back. I'm working in America and traveling in America this summer." He's like, "What's your end goal?" I was like, "I want to be like a I want to go into radio presenting, producing. It's like, oh yeah, have you going to university? I was like, no. And he basically laid into me in the middle of the shop saying, because he was like some big Ofsted inspector.
All right, okay.
He was like quite high up in the teaching industry. And he was like, oh, you're never going to get anywhere. I know so many people like you, like that haven't gone to university, haven't taken the opportunity. You should take it when it's there. You should be doing this. I have so many people that think they're going to be footballers and got injuries and got nowhere. And I'm just like, you can't box every single person in the same way. I wanted to literally fly off the handle at the time at this guy, but I had to reel myself in, because when someone does that to me, if someone really goes for me, I'm not afraid to fly off the handle and put them in their place. That's what sometimes has got me in trouble, but I've had to reel myself in over the last couple of years. But that was the worst criticism I'd probably say that I've had.
Oh yeah.
My parents are massively supporting about it, but that was the worst one.
Oh, I'll vouch for you on that one, in the sense of like when I was 18 and that, before I completely came sober off alcohol, I was like the biggest hothead you'll ever meet. I was like angry, and I genuinely could definitely relate. But yeah, I think that, as well as the fact that that guy didn't know, obviously you're saying you had depression and that, so he didn't know what you could have then went and done and took with that. So like it just shows you. I always say to people, you never read people by books, but you also don't judge people's situation to where they are.
No,
You don't
exactly.
know why that person's in the situation. I always remember speaking to somebody that drove quite a nice car. I'm definitely not shouting the brand out, but a really, really like out there nice car.
Yeah.
And I mind always speaking to him, and he was the most upset. It was like wasn't a supercar, sports car, it's a better way to put it, but he drove it on the daily. So you'd be like, this guy's cool, he got loads of money and stuff, and you'd think he was happy and like all this sort of stuff. This guy's probably the most unhappy person that I know. And I said, what's the reason for it? And he says, I'm so lonely. And I mind saying to him, I was like, lonely, you can literally go where he didn't have like private jet money, but I was like first class money, so you can go first class wherever you want, any point you want. He was like, yeah, but you don't realize that the more money you have and the higher up you get in the scales, the lonelier you actually are, because people start using you for various certain things. So maybe that guy had that type of thing, that he was like, he just got that high up, then people started using him, so then he actually took it out on you type thing. You never know really. But you're saying that your mum and your dad helped you out, is not helped you out, but like were really supportive, is that so? Like, would you say, because I'm always fascinated to ask people who their so, well, again, celebrity person they looked up to versus their non-celeb, well, not again, hypothetically non-celebrity person. Who would you say was the people you did look up to like that? It can be any industry, obviously. It doesn't have to be
industry.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be one thing.
Non-celebrity has to be my mum and dad. Has to be, because they're absolute grafters. They're like, my mum and dad are a bit different. Mum's worked loads of jobs like me. My dad's been one job. He's been in the bank. He's works for Barclays, bank manager, and he's been in that since he was 18 years old. But they work and work and work and work until because they provide for me and my brother, and they've worked their absolute behinds off just to make us have a nice life. And I respect him for that, and I take the work ethic, and I like to take their work ethic. I love to take their work ethic forward, because that's what I've taken from them, and their ability to be basically getting any situation and being able to find a way to deal with it, and just, what's the word for it? There's a certain word for it. I've forgotten what it's called. Forgotten what it is. Persevere. They persevere in various situations and push on through it. And I like to take that with me. I'd say celebrity wise, it has to be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. always has been an inspiration, whether it was in wrestling, acting, the works. Like, I follow him on Instagram and everything. I think it's just his ability to turn any situation into a benefit and just motivate so many people. Just like I've watched so many of his motivational videos, and that has got me through some of my toughest times, I'll be honest. It really has. Like, he is such an inspirational character.
I think as well as it's because like a lot of people said like his dad was a wrestler. I don't know what his name was, but I do know he was a wrestler. But
Rocky Maivia.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
That was his dad, yeah. Or Rocky Johnson. Yeah.
But I thought of people think like that's what got him into WWE, and maybe. But the thing is though, his dad wasn't like a multi, like, I mean, Dwayne Johnson's worth like hundreds of millions. His dad didn't have hundreds of millions. So again, he's used that and used his dad's motivation to get where they are. It's like Rey Mysterio as well. His son's now in WWE wrestling.
Exactly, and they're tag team champions now.
Yeah, which is absolutely incredible.
But The Rock wasn't originally supposed to go into wrestling.
No.
He was an American footballer.
Mm.
He played for the University of Miami. He was a defensive tackle.
Mm.
And the problem is he was doing really well. He was expected to get drafted. He was in the same team, the likes of Ray Lewis, obviously one of the greatest linebackers to ever play the game.
Mm.
But problem was there was a little guy on who decided to decided to swap from offense to defense and say he was going to take his position. A guy called Hall of Famer Warren Sapp.
Mm.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson got injured. Warren Sapp took his position, lit the world on fire, and The Rock never really got his position back. Went over to the Calgary Stampeders. He went and played over there, got cut from them, and they gave him one more. They cut from him, had a job, didn't have a job for a bit, and then they called him back to say back to the team. That's when he made his decision. I remember listening to one of his interviews. That's when he made his decision. Do I go back or do I try something else? And that's when he tried the wrestling industry.
And I think, like, again, he is very, see, a lot of people, when it comes to motivation and things like that, they don't actually like looking at people with a lot of money, because they see them as, because I can imagine, like, yeah, okay, Dwayne Johnson could probably retire, but I can't imagine he does what he does for money. Like, I mean, I've spoken to people that do acting and like are not huge big time actors, but I mean, they do acting jobs on the side, and they've been extras and things like EastEnders and Coronation Street and all these sort of programs, and they say it's like 15-hour days, like sometimes 5 days a week, 6 days a week. You don't really get a break, plus when you're off you still have to kind of be working to so I mean, it's a lot of work, so I can't imagine he does it for the money. But I think, like, something that people need to take from someone like Dwayne Johnson is that, yeah, he may be extremely successful and he may be really good at what he does, but he also motivates, well, obviously yourself for free through Instagram. So like he takes his time out to do the videos. Again, it's obviously building a public profile up and building your stats up, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. He still takes that day out to then, help people. And I'm sure can't imagine messaging everybody back, because that would be impossible. Some millions of followers, but can imagine if you really messaged them one day, he might actually message you back and give you not necessarily a shout out, but like give you like a positive message, which again would be like utter incredible. But
that'd be ridiculous. Yeah, out of all those people, we chose you.
That'd be amazing. Well, so what you say you volunteer in that just now in Susy Radio. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong, by the way.
No, it's right. It's bang on. It's right.
I wasn't sure if it was Susy or Susy.
No,
I was like,
it's
one of them.
because of the area and where it bases. It's basically SU is for Sussex, SY is for Surrey.
Ah, right. Okay. So what would you say is like your average day like when you go in and you do something, or is there not like an average day? Would you say it's literally different every single day?
It's I'd say it's quite a lot the same. It's quite the same because I used to do the lunchtime shows across the board. It'd be 12 till 2, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Basically what I'd do, I end up getting up, doing all my prep work before I get there. Literally just like all like the latest trends, latest stories. I like to try and go for the interesting, like wacky side of things, and like try and attract the younger crowd a little bit, because the actual demographic is more on the older generation. So I try and bring the younger ones in. So I do chart updates, like tune of the weeks, interviews, those types of things. Well, interviews have only kicked off in the last, I'd say 2-3 months. And a big thing was actually getting on LinkedIn. I'm getting all my interviews from there. Like people actually contacting me and it's like, oh, we've got this is my music. It's like, oh, do you want an interview? Oh yeah, come on. And I've had like artists with like 75,000 to 100,000 followers. Like I've got a lad who potentially is coming on next week. He's actually coming on and we're trying to work it out with a PR company right now, who's got 30,000 followers. He's actually based in LA. So we're having to actually try and work out a time where we can actually get him on the show. And it's quite mad how it's all come from LinkedIn, but it's literally like show prep in the morning, normally about an hour and a bit, depending, and building the interviews and everything like that. Then I'd normally get to the station because it's and set everything up probably around, I'd say 20 minutes, half an hour, 20 minutes before I start the show. And when pre-COVID, you could actually sit in there with the presenter before and during links, actually talk to them, saying what's going on in the show, a bit of a handover. But then you'd start the show on the top of the hour. And then afterwards, it would just be, that's it. And we go on to the next show. But at the moment with COVID, obviously, you have to wipe everything down. And the way the station's working is you have to have an hour gap in between each presenter in terms of actually in the studio, which is why there's so many people doing shows at home. So say the normal schedule on a Friday is me in the morning, 7 till 10. This lady, Chrissy, that I'm quite good mates with, we normally do a handover about 9:45, but she takes over from 10 till 12 at home. Mm-hmm. And then you'd have someone else who's actually in the studio from 12 till 2. And the next person will be pre-recorded. Drive 4 till 7 will be person in the studio normally. And then it'd go like that, it would alternate, because you have to have that hour gap. Otherwise, for it actually being sanitized, and so it can actually be cleaned.
Oh, right. So would you say it's like COVID's maybe, would you say it's better working at home, or would you say it's better working in the studio?
For me, 100% working in the studio. Yeah. I wouldn't like doing it at home, because I actually feel like I'm still going out, going to the studio, know the system, know the work. If something goes wrong or something cuts out, I can actually sort it there. Rather than being on the other end of a line, I would then have to contact one of the program directors or the technical people, like the engineers, and then they would have to sort it out. And I'm literally sitting there twiddling my thumbs at the other end. So when am I going to be back on air? Because I've had people do it before, happen to people after me before, where I've actually had to stay longer, so the continuity's there. So I can literally run into the next person's show.
Damn. A spontaneous question I always like asking people randomly for all my interviews. It's nothing like I've got dirt on you or nothing like that. Don't worry.
Wouldn't surprise me. Most people do.
Yeah, it's something I love asking people, because it's and I especially do not like giving them anything to prepare for it. Is, what would you say is your biggest flaw?
Oh my days, nothing. I'm joking. No.
One of those guys.
No, I'm definitely not that. My biggest flaw as a person,
catching people off guard with this.
person or presenter?
No, like wow, I've never had anybody come, but we'll go for it, because, well, if you feel comfortable doing presenter, because I know obviously volunteering and starting in that, then that's fine. But I'd personally mean like more of a personal. I've never actually had anybody ask me that, but more of a personal thing. We'll do the personal one first, because the presenter one, that's a good idea.
Sometimes being too brash, being too upfront with people. Like sometimes I need to judge a room a little bit better. In terms of like, I had, I think at one of my jobs a couple of weeks ago, I came out as my normal like outgoing character, and I kind of had said something I probably shouldn't have, although I wasn't meaning it in a bad way. I was meaning in a way to help somebody, in terms of point something out to them. I'm not going to say what it was, because it's probably not allowed.
Probably
not allowed. Let's leave it at that. There's licensing and everything and that we have to go through.
It was where the coffee machine was.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
The coffee machine wasn't in the right place. No, but I said something, and basically I had to get pulled over for it. It's just like, oh yeah, you probably shouldn't be saying that. You probably shouldn't be. You're doing well in your job and everything, but you probably shouldn't be saying this. It's like, okay, that's fair enough, but that's just my personality, and I haven't actually realized that I'm actually doing that. So sometimes I do come across in a very brash, I wouldn't say arrogant, but confident way, and some people don't like that because they're different personality.
Yeah, see, you're now confidence. I think I had such a nice guy on, Simeon Wright. He works for TalkSport. He's one of the assistant producers there. What a nice guy. And he said confidence as well. But I said to him, I was like, it's some people don't like confident people because they're not confident in themselves. So like clearly that, well, obviously I don't know the situation in that, but that could have been something to do with that. But what would you say is like a presenting side then, your flaw? Like were you meaning like, because a flaw, I always say, as long as you know you can overcome your flaws, which you obviously know you can, because you just said that you didn't know you were necessarily like that. What would you say is like your presenting flaw then?
The being underprepared. being underprepared for shows, because I've had situations where shows have gone really well, shows have gone really badly. The ones that have gone really badly, most of the time, it's when I am underprepared, which you should not be doing as a presenter. You haven't got enough links. You're trying to work stuff literally on the fly. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but the best way to be as a presenter is to always over prepare and have too much stuff. Because there's a color commentator in the NFL called Chris Collinsworth. You probably know him yourself as an NFL fan. He is the most prepared person in sports, because I was watching a documentary on him, and he, for Super Bowl 52, as the Patriots versus the Eagles, he had over 200 more quotes and bits of information on his pad that he didn't use during a 4-hour broadcast. He is one of the most prepared people you'll ever meet. And he's literally he will sit there for hours upon hours on each player.
Damn. I think so. You say being over prepared, right? But wouldn't you, I think that takes a skill though. Because I think if somebody has too much information in front of them, I think that can actually make them fumble and make them fumble their words and stuff. Not everybody, because obviously no one in this world is the same. Nobody. Met so many different people, and nobody's the same in any industry, to be honest with you. But would you say necessarily, obviously being over prepared, you have to kind of learn how to be over prepared, if that makes sense?
I wouldn't say so. I'd say so. It comes down to the end of the day how much you want it and how good you want your show to be. If you're in a presenter position and you prepare your show, there's certain things you need to be over prepared with, some things you don't. Because with one of my tutors / mentors, a guy called DJ Bailey, who used to work for 1&1 Extra, he was the drum and bass guy there. He would bullet point his intro. If you write out your intro in full, you're more likely, as you say, to fall over it. But there's other bits, like a lot of information in terms of introducing music and where they've come from, details about an artist. You need to actually fully write this out so you remember every single little thing. So there are situations where you need to be over prepared, and it is a skill, but it's a skill very easily learned. Very easily learned. You literally just sit there and just basically try and find as much information, and it'll be just ground into you eventually.
Yeah, I think when it comes to stuff like that, again, you have to be really motivated to do it, because have to sit down outside of work, not getting paid, and doing research and stuff like that as well. That's something that you have to be motivated to do, because again, a lot of people have the thing that if I'm not getting paid, then I'm not doing it type thing, which is a horrible mindset to have in any industry, to be honest with you. But what would you say is like the one, because I know obviously you said you said stuff earlier on, but what would you say is like the main thing that actually keeps you motivated every day? Because I know obviously you said your vertigo and all the other stuff and that, but what actually keeps you motivated? Like what helps you get what helps you get out the bed every morning?
Tunnel vision. My ability to have a tunnel vision on where I want to be and the goal I want to have. Because I've got a very vivid imagination, and I know exactly what I want, and my ability to have tunnel vision on it and basically not get out in terms of stuff that gets in my way. I always go back and know what I want and where I want to be. Although I have verged off at times, where there has been times where my radio stuff has had to take a back seat, but it always come right back to it like a boomerang effect. Like tunnel, I've got that pitch. I've always wanted to do like radio presenting, potentially going to TV one day. All that hosting stuff has always been a main thing for me. And whether it is in this country or another country, you never know. You see what opportunities come up. I would prefer, it used to be want to be abroad, but now I'd probably be much happier actually staying here.
Yeah, that's the exact same with me. And you called yourself an LA boy earlier, which made me laugh.
Yes, I did.
Would you say LA is where you actually want to go though? Because is there not too many people like yourself over there that want to be in media and that? Would you not rather go somewhere like, where's another? Austin, Texas, and anywhere in Texas just now is like the place to be. Apparently, obviously Joe Rogan and all these people went there.
The place to be is Austin and Nashville.
Would you say you'd rather go there?
I wouldn't mind it, to be fair. It sounds like a really good opportunity, because you see with the Joe Rogan podcast, his is in Austin. His studio's in Texas. And then you see with a lot of the main offices from iHeartMedia, the guys who do Z100,
Mhm.
like they've actually moved most of their stuff to Nashville. They're not in New York anymore, mainly because it gets so congested and the prices are so high. They've moved over to the likes of Tennessee and Texas, which probably a little bit cheaper to hire their offices and everything, but they're looking for that new next big central hub for the media industry, because New York and LA, they're so predictable.
Mm.
They're so predictable. Everyone's like, oh, I'm going to go to Los Angeles. Oh, okay. Everyone's done that.
Yeah, and it's usually run by like the same families and the same people. So it's usually they know who's going to be the next big star before he's the next big star, or she
Yeah.
isn't, or whatever you go by is the next big star. And I think again that's the problem when it comes to people like us. Obviously, you see the States, and you're like, obviously LA, you see the lights, Hollywood. That seems to be the thing. But
Yeah.
there has been a lot of. I've spoken to maybe three or four people three people that have went over, one person that was going to go over but changed his mind, and it was him that said Austin. But three people I did speak to that said the same thing, that turned in and been like, yeah, they've actually been over there and been to Hollywood and tried that sort of stuff. And I haven't actually got interviews with them, and it's not what you think it is. It generally isn't. It's not what it seems like on TV and stuff like that. It's an amazing place to be, but it's way too congested with everybody, families. It's like, you genuinely have to know people who know people who then own this business, who then help you get in, and it's not as easy as what people think. But then again, a good motivational thing for anybody in the United Kingdom really is that girl that was in Glasgow at an acting school, and genuinely had no expectations of being in Harry Potter, and then she got picked up and she was put in Harry Potter.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I think like a classic question to ask somebody is,
Okay.
where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
Oh, I get asked this by my dad all the time. It's like, when are you moving out? It's like 10 years time.
Yeah, because 5 years is a bit too, squish type thing. I always say 10 years is a way better. Have a 10-year plan and then try and accomplish it. Obviously try and accomplish it way sooner, but have the 10-year plan. It's a lot better.
Okay. I'd probably see myself still in this country rather than being abroad. That's how much my perspectives has actually changed, but in a decently quite a high presenting role, working in not just radio but TV as well. Also the podcasting sector, as yourself, Sin, because me and one of my mates are trying to start up one ourselves.
Well, what's it called?
It's actually called Access Allowed. We haven't done any content for it yet, but the Instagram, the social media is all up there. We've got it all going. We just have to find time to actually put the content together.
Right.
So it's basically the same kind of concept as you're doing, but we're kind of like going towards maybe like the more sports / music area rather than actually like talking about industry work people. But we're trying to do that and we're sorting that thing out. So that'd be one. But I've always had to think about my own business. Always. I don't know what it is yet because I like being my own boss. I've always been one of these people that I've had problem with authority, and everyone's always told me that. I was like, I always think I know better, as my family says. You think you know better than everybody? I was like, no, I don't. I just know how to do it better. Sounds arrogant, but it sounds so arrogant. But
no, it's cool. I always say that I always got the same because I'm really into fitness myself, and I hit the gym pretty much 6 days a week, 2.5 hours a day, and that just because it's a zoning place for me. And everybody said you'd probably pass the fitness test in the army, but if somebody was standing there shouting in your face, you wouldn't be able to stand there and like not let him properly have a go at you. And so I've obviously gotten a lot better over the last, I would say, over the last 3 years. I've definitely like zoned in on it, but before, no, I couldn't. I think
that's what happened with my family, because my family's RAF.
Oh wow.
My family's RAF. So my great granddad, I think, was stationed in Cyprus in the Second World War. My granddad was actually he was stationed in Germany during the Cold War. And then you have my uncle and also my godfather, who went in as an officer and basically got told, you can't be this because you don't want to take orders and you think you can do it better, which, to be fair, most of the time, from what I heard, this is his opinion, obviously, his ideas were better, but obviously it's a chain of command and you can't do that.
Yeah, you need to kind of learn to take from like listen to what your boss is saying and come back and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think I think having personally anyway, I think having the trait of I know how to do it better is a good thing and a bad thing. I think it's a bad thing because it can be taken in the wrong way. That's the only
Yeah.
reason I think it's a bad thing. But I think it's a good thing because you could go into for example, I went into how to put this into words. I went into working at a certain security. I can't go into it because I genuinely had to sign stuff, and it was not like I'm not talking like Ministry of Defence or nothing like that. It
Yeah.
just was a local site, but because of it was in Edinburgh, but because of the nature of the site, you had to sign something being like you had to check passes, and it was really, 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 really tight security. It was to do with it was in the medical industry. That's about as much as I suppose I can say. And
Okay.
I came onto that site, and I was like, obviously, I'd been in security a long time, and I was like, I'm generally no better than all these type of guys and stuff like that. And then I kind of got shot down a little bit because no, I didn't. But then I ended up telling them ways that it would maybe help and function it better, how to relate with us rather than relating with us as security, start relating with us as like human beings a little bit more and giving us like learning about security cameras and all this sort of stuff. And it actually helped function better. But before that, I got a heck of a backlash from that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think like you having that trait is actually a good thing, to be honest with you, because it will help you be more driven and more pushed forward and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, it's definitely a good and a bad thing, as you're saying. Like, but it's just how people take it the wrong way. It's just arrogance. There's a fine line between confidence and cockiness, and you've
Mm.
just got to always tether which side you are of it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that what would you say is like one trait you would say that somebody needs to have to go into like to be in a position you're in and being able to have that volunteer work in the radio and then all the other work you have as well. You have to have like a certain maybe trait or characteristic about you. What would you say is one thing that you do necessarily? Or maybe like more than one, because one's maybe too hard. Maybe like a couple of things you have.
I can go with one that springs straight to mind. Go in with an open mind.
Mm.
Always go in with an open mind with anything you do. Otherwise, if you go in with a closed mind and go in saying, I don't really want to do this, you're never going to get anywhere. If you go in with an open mind and walk in there and just think, right, I'm just going to give this a go, best I can, and we'll just see where it goes from it. Should happen in any industry, any walk of life you do. You go in with an open mind. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere.
Mm. And I've
That's it.
also heard about the a lot of people in media have turned in and said, yeah, you need to take every little opportunity that comes to you. Would you say that's the exact same with you as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You need to take every opportunity. Any little thing, whether it's a runner job, whether it's like making tea somewhere, like one of the premier DJs at the moment, she's what's her name? It's Charlie out of Ricky Melvin and Charlie. One of the biggest, they were used to be on Kiss Breakfast and were for donkey's years. Now they're on Radio 1. It was actually just Ricky and Melvin. Charlie went there, made the teas for a bit, sat there. She came on once on air to do one of their trivia things because she knew it. Maybe a few months later, she was on the show and she was part of the show. And then it was changed to Ricky Melvin and Charlie.
It does. It genuinely comes down to like, um, it's always the opportunities you don't take in life that are the ones that you genuinely should have taken. Like so
100%.
many people have told me that it comes down to like, if you don't take a little opportunity, then you're probably not all the time, but you probably are going to regret it like down the line
Exactly.
and things like that.
It's
100%.
like that famous quote by Wayne Gretzky. You'll never score the shot. I think it's you'll never score the shots you don't take or something like that. It's along the same lines.
Yeah, that's like I always used to bring it. I don't like going down this route too often personally, but with being overweight in that, like I was really overweight once in that, and you do get looked down upon. Like I just been brutal. Well, I personally got looked down upon, and it did knock my confidence. But then people used to, people used to always wonder why I used to go and talk to like, because I have to mention, no matter what anybody is, I'm straight. So like I used to go and talk to these people, like, these girls, and people would be like, they're out of your league, all this sort of stuff. And I
Oh,
used to just
that old chestnut. Yeah,
and I was 24 and a half stone and 45% body fat, and I'm hanging about
yeah.
with people like that. And then people are like, how are you, how does that work? How does that happen? I'm like, because I genuinely would just walk up to anybody and talk to them and have a conversation with them, because at the end of the day, what's the worst they can say? No.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's literally what you can do. When I'm smashing down doors in terms of emailing people for opportunities and stuff, it is the worst thing you can say is no. Why are you getting so worked up about it? And the best thing to do is be in the present. You shouldn't look for the future. You shouldn't look for the past, because those two things will make you feel worse. Play in the present. Think about what you're thinking about now and do what you do now.
And obviously, we understand that it's harder for some people to do than others, but it's something that everybody can do. It's just about, as you said earlier on, it's about sitting down, focusing on something, and then clearing your mind a little bit, which it can be anything from the gym to working a lot like yourself, and running like you do, and all this other stuff. So yeah, I think that, yeah, and I know you do have to go back to work again,
I do,
unfortunately.
unfortunately. Yeah, I do. I'd love to chat longer.
Yeah, it was amazing. Definitely want to have you back on, because we had definitely had a really good chat before the podcast as well. But what I want to say is, I obviously want to say thank you for your time again, because
That's
even
right.
even I always say to somebody, even a second somebody gives you of their time, you can't get that back. So if
Yeah,
they give them 1
100%.
second to listen to you and listen to what you have to say, that means the world to me
Yeah.
personally. So, but have you got social media you'd like everybody to
I
follow you on?
do. I do. I do. I do. Let's get into that. Let's try and find it.
Mm.
My actual my like Instagram handle, Twitter handles are at Chris Jacobs 238.
There we go. And I will put them, I'll get them off you so I can put them in the bio and stuff like that, because
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't do that once, and I just took what the person said and I put it on, and they were like 2 days later, they were like, yeah, you do realize you spelled that wrong and the letters are round wrong. I was like, see, this is why I was like, I didn't want to ask you for it, because I didn't want to be like, oh, you just said it, but
Yeah.
it's a trait. But yeah, I want to thank you for coming on, and I'm sure
That's all right. Thanks
everybody
for having me.
is all good. And have you just, and the last thing, have you got anything you would like to say to anybody that's wanting to get into the media industry, or just generally is going through anything like you've been through, like vertigo or mental health or anything? Have you got anything you want to say to anybody?
Take any support you can get in any walk of life generally, and like whether it's through going through mental health problems or going in the media industry, take any support you can get and always go in with an open mind with everything, and things will get better.
And with that note, I want to thank everybody for watching, and I want to thank our guest, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers, Guy.
Yeah.